together this way. Big smile.
And right here.
And
right
over here to you. Beautiful.
John, Emily, straight ahead. Straight ahead.
John and Emily together. Straight ahead.
Emily.
All right.
Emily and John to the right. To your right. To your right. Emily and John to the right. Emily and John to the right. To the right. To the right.
Yes, we need it together.
Together and then we split up.
Please. And together.
To your left.
And together, follow the voice this way. Big smiles.
To your left, John.
John and Emily together.
John, Emily to your left.
Emily straight ahead this way. Wait, that's so far. Emily, we'll get you. Emily straight ahead.
To your left, Emily.
Emily this way.
Emily to your left.
Emily, could I get you right here?
Thank you, sir.
Back this way, please, John. Thank you, sir.
John, next smile.
And Cillian right here like that.
Cillian's that guy before.
Cillian, can I have you straight ahead?
Thank you so much for that.
And to your left.
And one last step this way.
Right in front of you.
And right back here.
Thank you.
And right next to him. A nice big smile, sir.
And one more straight ahead, please.
And back over here.
Thank you.
Hi, Djimon.
Right here for the house. Right here. And in the center. Right here for you.
Right here for the house.
And right here.
Right here.
To the middle.
Emily.
Beautiful.
Straight ahead.
And then right here, please, right here. Perfect.
To the right. To the right.
Thank you.
And all the way to the right.
Straight ahead right here.
Everyone this way, please.
John to the left. Sorry. Everybody to the left. Everybody to the left right here. All right, I think they got it.
And together this way. Straight ahead.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right.
I think you got it.
And I think it's pretty heart-stopping, and it's incredibly exciting watching it. And the world expands. There's bigger set pieces. It's really an exhilarating experience watching it. We really needed this when this world expands. You know, how did other people fare in this climate? And so you find out, you know, through Cillian's character and Djimon Hounsou, and we're just so fortunate to have worked with those actors because, you know, we needed someone of Cillian's sort of ability and dexterity as an actor, you know, to come in and just knock it out of the park. And he's incredible in the movie and a sweetheart. So it was wonderful to invite him and Djimon into the family. I think the stakes get higher for her. I think that her maternal sort of ferocity is tested to the limits, and you know, I think now that because she's alone with these 3 children, one of which is a newborn baby, it's like, how is she going to keep them alive? Now that she has no home, she has no partner, where does she go? What does she do? So it's really exciting for me to play her in this new dimension. I think ultimately I don't think this is a sort of superficial scare fest. That's not what this is, and I don't even count it as a horror film, really. So I think people identify with the deeper metaphors of it, themes of family, of parenthood, of community, and I think that's what people cling to. That's why people wanted to watch it again and again. Some scenes are really harrowing to shoot and kind of painful, and then others are very technical, you know, because you're dealing with the reveals and those horror moments where the creature comes and it all has to time out with the camera. And I think John really knew when to choreograph stuff and when to just step back and let the actors play.
I had to come up with an idea that I could connect to as personally and come up with as organically as the first one. So as corny as it sounds, this is a thank you note to the audience that came out on the first one. This is really for the people who showed us such kindness and respect, and I really tried the entire time thinking of them to deliver a movie that I think that they would really respect. It's the world that I hope you fell in love with in the first one, but it's being explored in a much more intense way because there's no safety net in the second one. There's no farm, there's no father to take care of anybody, spoiler alert. And at the end of the day, I think that this is really about venturing out into the unknown. And I think it's about growing up, and I think it's about these kids taking the reins. And if the first movie was about parents for their kids, this is about kids for their parents. I'm so lucky to be a part of a cast like this, let alone helm a cast like this. And I mean, from Djimon and Hounsou, I've been a fan of forever. But in particular for me, Cillian Murphy, I've been the biggest fan of his for as long as I can remember. Even when I was a waiter, I was watching that guy and hoping I could be him one day. So the fact that he's in my movie, he's pulling off something that's very difficult. He's playing in a morally ambiguous character, a hopefully heroic character, and someone that you may or may not trust. And I think that that's really hard to do. And I mean, I just can't believe I got one of the best. I think you're going to be really scared. I mean, the truth is, I think, again, organically, you're more scared because you care about these characters. In the first movie, you were getting to know them. Now you know them. You don't want anything to happen to them. The sound's much more intense because you know the rules of sound. And so it's almost like my point was to make the audience part of the movie. And because they were part of the first one, I put them in the seat of the second one, and now they're actually walking through the world just like Emily and the other cast members.
I think that it's very physically challenging to be on set because it was very much action oriented, but it was also so much fun to be reunited with the cast, and we never had a boring moment. Oh, I think that Cillian and I work really well together. I think we have a lot of our process when acting. It seems very similar, and he's a very down-to-earth person. And it was, we also had a lot of common hobbies in real life, so it was really fun, and we could work a scene together really quickly. Djimon.
When I saw the first movie in the cinema, you know, what I loved about it so much was this beautiful, original idea, but that yet was so simple. And I think they're always the best ones, you know, the simple ones. How could we have not thought of that before? And I think in terms of films like this, I think people like putting themselves into the sort of shoes of the characters, and they ask themselves, what would I do? And then, of course, you have the universality of family. How do you protect your children normally, and then how do you protect them in an extreme world like this? You know, it's very appealing. It's extraordinary to be such a fine actor, and then to also be an extraordinarily gifted director. And that's not something you can learn. You know, you can learn the mechanics of directing, you can learn your way around a film set, you can learn the sort of vernacular of it, but to actually know how to tell a story, that's something innate, and he has that. And he's also a beautiful human being and a very generous person, you know, himself and Emily both. So yeah, it was a lovely environment to work in. I felt very, very privileged. I felt a great deal of affinity for the character. I mean, essentially, you know, you meet a character who's in a state of grief, and he goes in this wonderful. Actors always talk about that journey, you know, but in this case, I think he goes in an actual journey and an emotional journey, and that's very satisfying to play for me. I'm interested in complex, conflicted human beings because I think most of us are complex, conflicted human beings. Obviously the world is expanding, and I think the people that were curious to know how this world came to be will get a little more information. They will be teased a little bit more about how this, because it's kind of expanding outwards like that, rather than starting big and going small, which is very elegant, you know. So yeah, there will be more revealed. John had a really, really strong vision of how this movie would look. You know, we shot in Buffalo, which is a beautiful place. I really enjoyed working there, but they have a lot of these old disused steel factories, and they look like some sort of ancient civilizations. You know, and we shot all on location, and they sort of become a part of, become a part of my world, my character's world. But it still has that kind of sort of weirdly bucolic atmosphere that the first movie did, in that this would be a beautiful world if it wasn't for these creatures.
Oh, he's amazing. It's quite surprised me the way he would give notes. You know, they were sort of more like emotional notes. You know, not so much line reading, and so that's kind of surprised me. It was the first time getting notes from an actor-director. It left you, sort of free of changing the lines however, it suits you. You know, it's sort of like sets the stage of, the environment. I really think it's not so much the creature. I think it's really so much about the social relevance of how we cope with one another in this day and age. The sound in itself is a character in this film, and so that's why it's great to see on the big screen.
Hey, it's Lisa here with more on horror. The Exorcist was the first horror film to be nominated for a Best Picture Oscar. Now, the horror genre has never gotten much love from the Academy, though there still seems to be a bias against scary movies. During awards season, The Exorcist earned 10 Oscar nominations in 1974, including Best Supporting Actress nod for Linda Blair, who was just 15 years old at the time. Now, do you like my shirt? You can get one in the description below.